Welcome back, Ranger Faithful. And for today's installment, we will be looking at the Megazords in their default configurations. So, let's go chronologically, shall we? For no other reason than because. Here's the deluxe GokaiOh. I might as well show you the box while I'm here. And not too much to talk about. It's a pretty standard box. Got a little bit of, it's got the standard little, circle tape at the top. You just cut it with your, I cut it with my key.
I've already forgot something.
Good God, is this thing huge. Actually, before I pull it out, why don't I use my tape measure and tell you just how enormous this monster is. It measures 14 inches tall by 11 inches wide. So it's 14 by 11 box. That's massive. For those of you following along at home, take out your standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. It's larger than that. Tape around the front of it. Gurg. My gurg. To my scissors. It is sealed on 4 edges by tape, which I am now cutting through with my scissors. Off. Got a nice plastic wrap around it as well. Those Japanese do not kid around when they package stuff. And remember, this is not packaged for mailing. This is just packaged for the store. That down there. I am never going to need these again, so I'm going to put them in my trash. Here we go. GokaiOh in his box. Since they're all disassembled anyway, let's take a look. We've got the Gokai sub. And the radio randomly turns on. Gokai Hauler, which comes in 2 parts. Now this is kind of interesting. It's done like this so you can run like a car normally. For the foot formation, you break it apart, and there's a tab here that you're connecting. Transform the sub into foot formation as well. Two swords. Nothing too much to say about that. I'll set them aside since we will be using them in galleon mode. Helmet, which of course attaches in jet mode. Now here's something that was not in the Legendary Megazord, which is the cannon for Gokai Starburst. Gokai Racer is right here. Nothing altogether to say much about it. There's a fist right here, which I guess is supposed to be the cockpit. And you can flick it up or down. Nothing too fancy. Gokai Jet with the helmet attached, right here. Wings. Our lovely wings. It's got the cannon here, which has the hand underneath. Not too much to say about it. I mean, honestly, for all you people out there who are interested in the Megazord toys, keep in mind that whether it's Japanese or American, it's pretty much a brick when it's in Megazord formation. And here we've got partially formed GokaiOh, so let's close it up to make Galleon mode. Obvious robot kibble is obvious. Though for a space Galleon, I think it works. This thing can actually turn. And because of the way it's designed, it actually will make this pop open. So, there's that. Obvious robot head is obvious. Actually, I wonder. Let me take a look. If I can actually store this in here. Hey. Stop trying to hide your parts. No, you can't actually close it. Bummer. Wait, actually you can. I didn't notice it till just now, but you can fold that down. Stick that into it. Close the top chamber up. Lock it in place. You've now safely secured your cannon away. Now, of course, we're still missing one thing for this to be a proper Gokai Galleon. Our twin swords need to be connected together, and my hands are flubbling about, so I can't actually find the right connection parts. Only one place you can put it in, because it's specifically sized for everything, including the little handle off part. Bit tricky to get in there. Unless I'm doing it wrong, but I don't think so. There we go. That's in the right spot there. There we go. Nice and clipped in. Nice and secure. You know, and for Sentai's first Galleon, I have to say, I love the design. It looks very nice. But there's our Galleon. Noisemakers are noisy. So let's go and move on to the Deluxe Megazord. Now, one thing I will notice right off the, I'll note right off the bat. See, there's a Ranger key in here. None, not a single one of the Gokai line comes with a Ranger key. So that's something to keep in mind. You get a Ranger key with every one of the Megazord purchases. We're still recording. Toss out some twist ties that I already had clipped when I did the first review of this. Ranger Key. Translucent red. So let's put that over off on the side. Boxes are going everywhere. Boxes, boxes everywhere. He actually comes in Megazord form. Right out of the box. But let's disassemble him. Pop off the helmet. Close up the chamber. Obvious Megazord head is obvious. Just tilt up and they pop right off. Just twist anywhere and they'll pop right off. Tilt the wings up. Turn our shield around. Now this, I just noticed right off the bat. No, it's in both. For a second there, I thought that there was no Megazord, there was no insignia on the other shield, but I guess it is. Oh well. This is much easier to snap in. So there you go. The galleon formation. And that's because I said it before, I'll say it here. Obvious robot kibble is obvious. So let's do a direct comparison, shall we? One's well, obviously the American release is smaller. They look about the same in terms of detailing, kibbling, and all that stuff. It looks literally just like they scaled it down and replaced these hexagonal ports with the Zord Builder parts. Because look, same place here. You've got the clips for the weapon right here. They both have maneuverable fins on the bottom. The ports on the bottom are just the same, changed for Zord Builder ports. So altogether, it's identical design-wise. Don't worry, we'll be getting to Super Robot Chogakin later, but since it only comes in robot mode, you have to wait till everything's in robot mode. So we'll look at greens next, just because I'm picking it up at random. Again, design-wise, identical. They scaled it down. The wheels still do the same term. A little less paint apps on the American release. You'll notice that right off the bat, is that the wheels aren't actually painted on the inside rim. Some of the colors of the plastics are a bit different, with the nose cone, for example. It's missing... It's scaled down a bit so you don't see the little thing here and you'll see here, because of the size, I'm guessing. It would just be kind of hard to put that little detail in there. So, they fold down the same way. They actually have it molded on here, but not painted. The icon logo. You'll notice the Zord Builder port is here. The connection port is here. It's just a Zord Builder port here, so that's the same thing. But they add a couple extra Zord Builder ports here and here for additional stuff in the Zord line. Since I've already transformed that into robot mode, might as well transform the galleon into robot mode, shall we? And I should probably show this on camera instead of just speeding through it. I took off the swords, obviously. Twist down. This, they look so similar, I actually had to check the ports to see which one was which. This is the American release. Fold the wings back a bit. Can't actually turn that down, so just flip it down. There we go. He's in robot mode. And once we're here, we might as well just attach his robot parts, shall we? We shall. Voila. Gokai Galleon is exactly the same. So I'm noticing these joints are a bit more ratcheted because they make noise when you turn them. Anyway. Yeah, they're definitely more ratcheted joints in this, which makes things a lot more clunky, as the saying would be. So, twist everything back. Lift up one arm. Click in the arm and you're good. We'll move on to the other arm locks as we're here. So, you know, it clips on right here. Nothing too spectacular about it. Doesn't look good in either form when you get right down to it. I mean, you can make the argument that those are booster jets, but come on. A hat is a hat. Let's not call it a goldfish. I'm actually not sure which is more show accurate, the gold or the black wings. But yeah, they look pretty much the same. You know, there's a few less paint apps on this. It does have the molding for the emblem that this one has on the wings. Has the molding here. So, now that we've taken a look at that, we'll pop off the helmets. We'll fold down the wings. We'll fold down the wings. And we'll attach them to our Megazords. And just because I'm sure someone's going to ask the question, might as well try it. Zord Builder Zord, GokaiOh. Nope, no fit. It's too big. The hexagonal joint here is too big. Alright, so then, the obvious reverse question they're going to ask is, well, can you put the bigger part on the smaller Zord? Well, technically yes, it just won't latch in because, you know, smaller joint, bigger connector. So that question out of the way. Just a little click. And we've got our helmet already, so we'll just do a click with the helmet. And now he's in the form that pretty much never changes because all the other add-ons pretty much just change the legs. So click. Simple click. GokaiOh's coming together. Since we're here anyway, we might as well do it. Break apart our swords, which are detailed in pretty much identical fashion. So we'll click it. You know, I know it's irrelevant. I know the preferred side is to put it on the left, but since you've got the hollow ends here, I want to have the hollow ends hidden, so I'm just going to stick them in reverse formation just for better visuals. That doesn't really matter. Besides, if you have two swords and you want the sword in your left hand, if you want to draw the sword into your left hand, you could always go, you know, I think always in the show he's reaching down and grabbing the opposite side. So to have the one in the left hand is better to sheath it in the other side, which works better because visually, you know, you don't have that kibble. That hollow kibble from the connection from when they connect together. Alright, so we've got GokaiOh with swords mounted. Probably going to do the same thing here. Ratchet the joints up. Hey, actually, well, there is some hollowing here, but it's less noticeable on the American release. Like, there's the entire chamber was hollow on the Japanese one. So we'll just stick it in here, just so it's a bit different. The paint apps on the swords are a bit different. These are pure gold, while the other one had gold and silver for the sword, obviously. Those are clicked in. We'll look at the subs next. American sub, Japanese sub. differences. There's a Zord Builder port here, which is interestingly where the periscope is here, so you can they can kind of get away with it, kind of. It does kind of break up the design, but you can kind of imagine it being a periscope because it's generic enough in shape you could see it as a periscope. Just obviously doesn't have the wings. Paint apps. Paint's a little bit different between the two, but they seem to be identical in terms of applications. There's no symbol up here, but there's a symbol here. There's less paint on the sides, but the symbol is molded in there. There is a Zord Builder port on the side here if you want to attach something to the side. Transformation. Exactly the same. So let's put a leg on our Zords. Just so people can see it happening. Poor GokaiOh's only got one leg to stand on. Pink goes here. Done. The American release. It's actually a hinged joint, so it just does it on its own. Zord Builder port here, Zord Builder port here, standard Zord Builder port here. As I showed with this one, it breaks apart. There are no ports on the side. Obviously, one small or another. Color differences are a bit different. Less paint apps, but they do have the symbols molded on here. Again, no paint app here, but it is molded. You know, this one has no. This is the GokaiOh, has no painting at the top, but this one does, which is kind of an interesting alteration. Just flip them down, and in this case, I need to physically attach it elsewhere. GokaiOh. I tried to attach a Legendary Megazord's foot the other way. It'd be funny if there was a Zord Builder port there and I could. And Legendary Megazord. Oh, Nissan. So, you know, they look practically identical. They have practically the same parts. And one's just a little bit smaller. Design-wise, they're practically identical. So, on the merits of itself, I would say, you know, if you're just going with it, if you're not concerned about combinations, which we'll cover in a later point, and we'll deal with how the combinations deal with the Zord itself. But the Zord itself, the Megazord, I'd say go with the domestic release. It's going to be cheaper. You're going to get an extra Ranger key, which actually has built-in functionality with it, because that's how you actually activate the port opening, is with a Ranger key, which I guess we'll cover now. There are actually Zord Builder ports hidden in here, so you can pop that out. This thing's got Zord Builder ports all over the wazoo. Open up our Ranger key. And it's going to be hard to show you the front and the back at the same time, so. See the keys in there, right? Basically just opens up the main chamber, because everything else is based on Zord Builder port connections. How do you open up this baby? See this little thing on the back? It turns. You can give it... Yeah, I'm going to hold this so not that I don't block anything. If I turn it counterclockwise, it does one thing. If I turn it clockwise, it does something else. And I'll show you what that is when I turn it around and do the same thing. Alright, so If I turn it counterclockwise, what do I get? 1, 2. It does flip these open, but my hand's blocking one of them. If you turn it clockwise, you can open them up one by one. If I turn it the other way, it opens them all up simultaneously. There's our two robots in a robot form. And then lastly, since he only has one form, we'll open up this guy. This is the Super Robot Chogakin 12-inch Deluxe 12-inch GokaiOh. Basically, an SH Figure Arts version of a giant robot. Double packed, so you have to first remove one layer of plastic to get to the meats. Now, I won't be putting in all the various accessories because, well, it's kind of a pain in the ass. But basically what it is all the various ports here. You can just take them off and put our replacement part in there. And he basically comes only enabled for one mode, Gokai Starburst, and that's it. He does have clips on the side that you can put the swords in. And this guy has got waist articulation, an elbow joint. Looks like it's a single. No, it's a double joint. He's got shoulder articulation. These have articulated. The head can be articulated. I think it actually has a ball joint in there, but of course it's hitting its own body, so it can't do much. This actually does complete turn. This does turn, but doesn't do anything. These all pop off for putting in the alterations. You've got full ball jointed on the wrist, full ball joint on the wrist. The feet are articulated. There's actually a toe joint here that's similar to the toy. You can actually fully close it up though, just to make a note of it. Can tilt up. You can actually pull it down so you can get some side-to-side rotation. You can do the same thing here. It doesn't actually have a toe joint, which is kind of a bummer. It has actually got a articulated skirt, so you can actually adjust these things out of the way as you need to. And it's actually got a double jointed knee. So, mini GokaiOh here is designed for articulation. And as you can see how they all line up together, he's quite tiny. How tiny is he? Oh. I could bring out ye old AAA battery, I suppose. Though I don't know how much of a use that is in terms of scale. There's the AAA battery. But there is everybody. Put him back in his box. And now I'll keep him out to finish off with the review. You can flip these open because you have to replace its little tab on items. But it does do that, just to mention. On the arm, it's a bit different. Basically, it's just something you clip in. Not horribly complicated. So, on the whole, you know, if you want a combining robot, because keep in mind, whether you're dealing with GokaiOh or the Legendary Megazord, it's a brick. It's got articulation at the connection points. If you try and articulate these, they'll pop right off. Same thing with the other one. This can articulate, but really, there's no articulation to speak of. You cannot turn the head on the Legendary. You cannot turn the head on GokaiOh. If you want articulation, you're going to have to go with the mini guy. If you want an actual transforming robot for its own merits, I would go with the domestic release. He's a little bit smaller, but has everything in the right place. And the Zord builder ports mean you can mix and match them, so you could give him, say, the legs of the SPD robot, or you can give him the arms of, it's up to you. It's a lot of mix and matching fun with that. And the Zord builder ports are easily folded out of the way in most of the places. So, generally speaking, if you're just going for just a robot, just to have GokaiOh or the Legendary Megazord, go with the domestic release. It'll cost you less. Cost you about $25, $30 versus 50 and up for the other guy. There's no lights and sounds, so literally all you're getting out of it is a robot. If you want a robot that has articulation, go with the mini guy here, but it's still gonna be pretty pricey because it's still a Japanese import. It's not a domestic release. There is no domestic release for GokaiOh Legendary Megazord as far as I know. And that's it. We've spent almost 32 minutes talking about a robot man. So our next review will obviously cover their various combining forms, and so stay tuned for that. And I hope this was informative to somebody. Certainly informative to my study on Bandai of America and Bandai in Japan.